I was 10, I think, so it was about 30 years ago. Well, yeah, it was 30 years ago, in fact. I lost my dad to suicide. So the day's always very vivid. I remember it really well. I remember it quite well because it was the first time I babysat my younger brother, Stu. And he'd come home that night, and then, like all kids, I was kind of pretending to be asleep. I'd been working very hard to do a good job because I was first time babysitting, wanted to do really well. Mum and Dad were shift workers, so it wasn't long. It was literally only a couple of hours, but I remember it being a big deal to me. They'd rented a film I could watch. Can't remember what it was. It was a Western. Dad came in, said good night, and that was the last time I saw him. Woke up in the morning, something felt wrong straight away, just this weird feeling. Went downstairs and I found a note, which was from Dad. I remember thinking at the time that he'd just run away. Went back upstairs, looked out my window, so where our garage is, it was into a car park to a doctor's surgery, and that's when I then saw a doctor trying to resuscitate my dad. I remember waking up my brother, he was quite freaked out, trying to get it together. I was trying to ring Mum, who was on her way home from a night shift. All I could do at the time, I remember thinking, was just trying to just keep things organised. So I was getting dressed, I got my brother dressed, just trying to let him not see what I'd seen. And the doctors saw us, but they couldn't get in because the door was locked and I couldn't find a key. Mum came and me and my brother went off to my auntie's. Mum went with Dad to the hospital, and I just remember the day my auntie was trying, bless her, to distract us. She took us for a walk up the hill, but you know, it was all there. And then I remember, unfortunately, Mum coming in that night and told us that Dad didn't make it. He died in the hospital, in the ambulance on the way to hospital. During that time, so the doctors were amazing. They'd seen all we'd been through. We were always very close to that doctor's surgery because we were neighbours. They'd become aware of Julie Stokes and Winston's wish, and it just happened that that was the first year of Winston's wish, and I believe we were in the very first group that the charity did. So through the doctors, we were referred to the charity for some counselling to start with. So this would have been October. Dad took his life in August, so it was still very raw for us. But what I do remember is, I think one of the feedbacks we gave and my mum gave is that suicide felt different to what was going on with a lot of other people. Different ways of dealing with it. It was very different for us with the suicide. It was that suddenness. 1 minute Dad was there, the next he was gone, and there's just this big void, and it feels like life is never going to be the same. So I know that not long after, we were in a group specifically for people who'd lost someone to suicide. That was really helpful. Lots of different coping mechanisms, ways of understanding the anxieties, the trauma, the stresses you felt. There were lots of other fun things. At the time, they adopted a bear at Whipsnade Zoo. I remember going to meet the bear and the coach trip, and I still got my memory bear that I got given. And I remember things like just chatting to kids on the coach and it just feeling a bit normal, like, and being okay with being normal. That was really hard at first, learning how to just be okay with your feelings. It felt like I had to grow up really quickly. So one of the things the charity gave me was just a connection to my childhood still, and those moments where you could just go off and be a kid and not feel like, I've got to be strong for Mum, I've got to have it together for my brother, you know, all of those kind of moments really. I think I'd always wanted to do something and give back. I was a lot bigger than I am now at one point. I think I was about 10 stone heavier. So when Dad passed away, I had emotionally brought about asthma. And they put me on steroids, which obviously, eating a lot, I put on a lot of weight. And I remember running for a bus But that led to me to being like, this is ridiculous. You've run for a bus, it wasn't far, and it's taken the whole journey to get my breath back and be ready for work. And very out of character for me, I was looking on a forum for Gloucester rugby. I've always stayed connected with cycling and rugby because Dad was into those, so that's my connection I maintain with him. Someone had posted up on there they were looking for other people to play touch rugby, and for whatever reason, most days I'd have been way too nervous or shy to say yeah. But I think the bus incident just twigged that for me. That led to me playing rugby, started getting a bit into shape. That led to cycling, and I just felt I kind of am an all or nothing person. And I remember coming home and saying to him, oh, I could do something for charity. And I'd looked at Winston's Wish, and it'd been the first time I'd reconnected for a while. And they were doing a bike ride through Cambodia, and then quite rightly was like, that's ridiculous. You've not cycled in ages, you can't do that. But they did have a Land's End to John O'Groats bike ride, and I just threw myself into that, signed up, did the fundraising. Realising I was struggling to raise a target, it was quite a big amount. I'd been talking to friends about a challenge we could do to do with it, and that ended up being, we found there was a record for the longest game of rugby ever played, and it was over 24 hours. So we organised a game of rugby that was an attempt at the longest game ever played. For various reasons we didn't break it, just logistics and stuff, but we did play for 25.5 hours. And it blossomed into doing marathons. So I did the London Marathon, I've done a couple of other big bike rides for the charity and just kept fundraising. And then COVID happened, and Kerry, who's been amazing throughout, she just rang out of the blue over lockdown, and not for any reason, not to ask for help, nothing like that. She was just checking in. And just after, so we'd been going through IVF treatment, and I think it was about 2 weeks before, or not long, literally not long before we'd had a miscarriage. Our second round of IVF had been unsuccessful, and it was just nice to hear from her. And I just asked how they were doing, and I'd seen about the lockdown marathon. I needed something at that point to distract myself, so I was like, I'll do a marathon. And it was probably the hardest thing I've done. Unfortunately, we had another miscarriage, and that was the end of IVF. So to deal with that, I did a lockdown London Marathon, trying to do that in an inflatable dinosaur costume, just ways to try and get people to connect and give. So it's just continued from there. And then obviously this year is the 30th birthday. It's also 30 years since my dad passed away. We've now adopted, so I'm the age, in October I turned 41, which is the age Dad was when he passed away. So it just felt the right time to do something. Cycling means a lot. I remember watching the Tour de France with Dad on a little black and white telly. We went on holiday to France a lot, so the London to Paris challenge felt really good. So practically begged Kerry to keep a spot for me. The fundraising is an amazing thing. I love giving back, but I think, there's a selfish element for it. Exercise is the way I cope, it's my outlet, so it gives me what I need as well. So I still have that, and it's lovely to have the connection with the charity still. I think in terms of what I've seen in the 30 years I've been involved in the charity, I do remember just being in this little room at the hospital. It's amazing to me that it's gone from being this local Cheltenham-based charity to being so much bigger. It's very sad at the same time that something is needed like that, but it's just great to see that they want to help as many people as possible. And that's why I always try and get as much fundraising as possible. No child should have to go through the loss of someone that close and have to go it alone. You just don't have the understanding or comprehension of it, and I think I've seen that more through my adoption process with our little boy. He's going to have to go on a journey. It's a different kind of loss. These emotions he can't understand or articulate. It just drives you on to see more help's needed, and it's just great to see that charity continue to evolve, and just to have made 30 years, A, makes me feel very old, but B, it's just amazing to see that it has thrived and kept going, and it's got through some hard times to help people who need it. And I hope they're here long after, you know, I don't need their help and guidance. But they're there even now if I still need them. It's just amazing to see them be able to help more and more people, really.